Welcome back, everybody. This is Matt and Scott with Stout Sportsmen. Uh,
Howdy.
today's today's video, we're going to be going over our drop shot rigs. Basically, what rods, reels, line, hooks, sinkers, and baits, the whole shebang. And we'll give you our opinions each, what we use, what we like to use, and we'll go from there.
Yeah.
What do you want to start out with?
Let's start off with the rods.
Okay, we'll start out with the rod and reel. Go ahead, tell us what you like to do.
So I've actually started making my own rods, and the first rod I ever made was a rod that I wanted for drop shotting, specifically. And it's a 7-foot medium light, fast action. So it's actually there's a lot in the tip. It's a very light rod. And it's a perfect feel rod for drop shotting. There's a lot of feel. And I actually built it with the big handle in front of the reel. A lot of rods, you have the big part of the handle below the reel.
Right.
On mine, I actually put it above, so I keep my hand above the reel for a little bit more sensitivity.
Sure. Yeah. It probably gives you a little bit better balance point too. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know that's not everybody's cup of tea, but
yeah. But I mean,
I enjoy it.
If you got to tailor your gear toward what you want,
exactly.
And that's how everybody should be. My setup normally, what I have a rod right here. This is a 7-foot Dewa Laguna rod. It's a one piece. This happens to be a medium heavy power with a fast tip to it. Mostly I'd prefer to fish with a medium, but this is what I have set up for an example right now. But right around that 7-foot range, maybe a little bit shorter. A lot of times I'll use a medium action, 6'6". I am shorter, so naturally I'm gonna, lean toward shorter rods. But obviously a spinning rod. Every now and then I will fish a drop shot with the bait caster, and it would be a medium, right around that close, 6'10", 7-foot range.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna fish it with a bait caster, I would use a little bit bigger hooks. Most of the bait casting rods are a little bit more of the medium heavy action. So use a little bit bigger hook.
Yeah, like the one rod that I will use sometimes for drop shot, a bait caster anyway, would be that medium Cabela's rod. It's actually a crankbait rod, but I've had pretty good luck using that as a drop shot rod or wacky rig rod. Yeah. Yep. And that's actually a rod that you got me.
Yeah. So line, what kind of line are you using?
The majority of the time I'm going to have braid on there, anywhere from 10 to 20 pound braid. I really, for drop shot, for me, there's no reason to go above that. Maybe like a top water might be like a 30, 50 pound braid, something like that. But for drop shot, I like to keep it small, 10 to 20 pound. You're probably in the same boat as me. Yep. And then
definitely want to keep it light on the braid, and and when you're fishing drop shot, that's just your main line.
Right.
I think we're going to talk about. I think you're just about to lead into the leader material.
Yes. For leader material, the past couple seasons I've been using mostly right around 10 pound for a leader line, and I've kind of found that it's a little bit too heavy still. So this is like the Berkeley Vanish I've been using, 10 pound. I've even used some 12 pound, but this year I'm going to probably go mainly with, that's just some cheap strength fluorocarbon, but I actually like it. I've had good luck with it, but I'm going to try and stick with like a 6 pound fluoro for leader line. It doesn't matter whether it's Stren or Berkeley Vanish P line, whatever. It doesn't really matter, just whatever.
Yep. Use whatever fits your budget and whatever you like.
Yep.
I mean, I use some Seagar and Vizex.
Yeah, it's a little bit as well. Yep.
A little more expensive, but I think it's pretty good quality.
Yeah,
works pretty well.
And like, to me, drop shot is a little bit more of a finesse finesse setup. So you definitely do want to use probably like that 6 pound or maybe 8, depending on what depending on what size fish you're targeting.
Yeah, and what you're working around. If you're working around a lot of structure, you may want to go up to about 10. I mean, I wouldn't go too much over 10 or 12.
But if you're more in open water, like fishing a hump or something like that, or a drop off where there isn't, boulders, rocks, anything like that, you definitely want to lighten it up. I would say, that 6 pound area is probably pretty good.
Yep.
Yeah. Another thing too, I want to kind of go over real quick, that transition, whatever knot that you use to tie your leader line to your braid, if you're using all, braid, you don't want to use too thick of fluoro, because that knot is going to be, you're going to find that it kind of snags up on especially the eyelet on the very tip of the rod. So I like to use like a thinner fluoro. Obviously it's going to be a lighter, and that way that transition as it's going through the eyelets isn't as severe.
Yeah. Another trick is to only use a very small, like a 6 to 7 foot long leader, so you're not going through any of your guides.
Yeah, that's true. And that way also, when you do have to retie, like if your leader line does get frayed, that way you don't have to retie everything. You can just cut it off and you still got 4 or 5 feet left to go.
Yep.
I've learned over the last couple of seasons that's kind of a good way to go about it.
All right, knots. What kind of knot are you tying?
From the leader to the braid, if I'm running braid on that, because sometimes I'll just run all fluoro. But if I'm doing braid to fluoro, most of the time I'm using the uni knot, double uni, whatever you want to call it. I know you use something a little bit different. Sometimes I've had a couple break off issues. I'm not sure if that's equated to my knot tying abilities or inabilities, but I've had a few break offs, so I may look into trying a different knot.
Yep. So as far as knots, I use for my braid to leader, I use I believe it's the Crazy Alberto knot.
Okay.
Something along those lines. And it holds very well as long as you tie it right.
Right. That's key.
Yeah. And for my actual hook, I use the polymer knot. I mean, just about everybody uses that. Yeah,
it just gets the hook, kind of here. I'll show you real quick. It just puts the hook in that right position, so it'll kind of. Let me take the bait off of here real quick, just so you can see how the hook will stand out. And you can kind of play with it a little bit, but you kind of want it perpendicular to your line. There you go.
There you go.
Yep. But yeah, the polymer knot. I don't really know of any other knot that's gonna put the hook in the right position.
Yeah. Hey, if you do, comment down below and let us know. Yeah, I'd love to know a few more.
But yeah, that'd be great. But I mean, the polymer knot, I've always had good luck. If I do break line or whatever, it's almost always where if I'm going braid to fluoro, that's almost always where it's going to be. It's almost I don't think I've ever broken a polymer knot off from the hook. So
yeah. How much leader length do you leave for your weight at the bottom?
This particular one here, I have. Well, you can see the hook is right here, and my weight is right here. So this is about. Right now, this one's about 18 inches.
Yeah.
But depending on where you're fishing, sometimes you might want it up a little further off, off the bottom of wherever you're fishing. Sometimes, it might be 6-10 inches. Other times a little bit more. It all depends.
Yep. I mean, that's a lot depending on if you're fishing in grass, you might want to put that bait right above the grass.
Right.
And that all depends on, where those fish are relating. If the fish are closer to the bottom, you might want a little bit less leader.
Right. Yep. Yeah, it's just kind of one of those things that you're going to have to tailor to what you're fishing for.
Yep.
What conditions.
Hook wise.
Okay. I have
a few to show.
Okay.
This is a 1-aught, and I think these are the owner.
Yes. Those are the mosquito hooks.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of those, and you can get them at Walmart. So that's huge. I love those hooks.
This is a size 2.
Okay. Yep. And like a size 2, that's a smaller hook. Obviously, that's going to be something where you're fishing where you got some smaller bass. That 1-2 pound range. I'll go over the 3 hooks I have. This is a Berkeley Fusion. This is one of their drop shot hooks. It is a 1/0. That's usually the biggest I'll use for drop shots. And then I have same hooks as Scott was just talking about, the owner hooks. I have a size 1 and 2. These ones you can find at Walmart. They're fairly cheap and they're really good hooks. I like them.
Yep.
This is the size 1, which I use the majority of the time. And then just like he showed you a minute ago, this is a size 2. I'll just hold these up side by side.
Yeah. So I use a 1/0, a 1, and a 2. The 3 different sizes.
Same with me.
And yeah, it's all depending on where you're fishing and what kind of fish you're fishing for.
Yep.
These size 2, we actually use for fishing, for walleye, perch. I drop shot for perch and bluegill and all that kind of stuff. These were great.
Yeah. For this video, I was thinking just more on the lines that we're going to talk about bass fishing, but if you're using a drop shot for walleye, like a size 2 is good. If you're going to be fishing for perch, 2 is probably the biggest you're going to want to use because the mouths are so small. Yeah. Anywhere from a 6 to a 2. I think 6 would probably be the smallest I would use, but yeah.
So yeah, just depends on the size of the fish that you're going after and the size of the baits.
Yeah. Do you want to go with weights next?
Yeah, let's go with weights.
Okay. Now with weights, this is very much going to be condition based. I know, like up in the St. Lawrence when we fished up there, and the elites that had fished there as well, they're going to be using. I think they were using 3/8 to half.
Yep.
So I mean, you got something in this size range, whether it's lead or alloy, something like that.
Yeah, and this is this little different shape. This is also a 3/8, but it's more of a cylinder.
Right. Yep, just like that. And usually for drop shots, I do prefer that they have the
keeper.
Yeah, that little keeper on there. So you can just tie a knot at the end of your leader line, feed it through, and then just kind of snug it up. Yep.
And then I also have this other one that we use is like a teardrop.
Right. Yep.
This is a 1/4 ounce. So going from a 1/4 to a 3/8. A little different size.
And a lot of your weights are going to depend on what your current situation is. Current is in water, not your current situation like right now. Like if we're fishing the Niagara River, something like that, where there's a little bit of, some decent current, you're going to want something a little heavier to get your bait down where you want it. But if you're on a lake and there's no current, there's no wind, then I'm going to throw something quite a bit lighter. A lot of the time, what I like to do with my weights, this is just a lead weight. This is, I think, I want to say 1/8 ounce. A lot of time, what I'll do if say we're fishing Lake Alice, for example, which is a small lake, your biggest bass you're probably going to find is about 2 pounds at the most. So I'll take this 1/8 ounce and I'll just take my pliers and I'm just going to nip off maybe half of it to make that like a 1/16. Just break it off, and then I'm just going to fish with that little piece there. I do that quite a bit, so I got a lot of extra lead in my little tackle box there. So
yeah. All right, baits. Finish this up with going over some baits.
Like a lot of other setups, you can fish anything.
Yeah.
I think what I had on here earlier. I mean, traditionally, you're probably going to use something. Oh, my rod is coming at me. Just something like that, and just kind of just going to go and nose hook it. Just so when it is on your line, it's kind of going to be sitting out like that in the water.
Nice.
But I mean, that's just one. I mean, you can use any type of swim bait on there if you want,
Yep.
And you can work it through the water. You can just sit there and just give it a little jig just to let it sit, or you can use a swim bait and just kind of swim it. Whatever you want.
And sometimes you even just dead stick it, just hold it still, and That works too. Let the water do the work.
If there is a little bit of current, yeah, that current will get that bait flowing. Yeah, I mean, you can put creatures on there still. I mean, I've put creatures on a drop shot. I mean, one of my favorites is to actually use a wacky rig off the drop shot setup, and that's super simple. Just take your hook here. This is actually from my rod and reel, and I do have a little the little ring on there with what the hell do they call those?
The O-rings.
Yeah, the O-rings.
Wacky rings.
The wacky rig tool. But a lot of time what I'm fishing on my drop shot is this right here. It's just simple, and it's like one of my top 2 confidence baits.
So just a few that I have. This one is the Elastec Trick Shots.
Yeah, it's from Z-Man.
Yep, this is the green pumpkin goby color, so it imitates kind of a goby.
Yep.
This one is from Strike King, the half shell. And last but not least, I tried these last year and they worked pretty well. These are the Guggen baits. This is the Dragon Drop. Pretty nice little bait.
Yeah. And when you're thinking about drop shot too, I mean, drop shot is more of a finesse setup presentation.
Yep.
And a lot of time with that, you kind of want to keep, for the most part, you want to keep your baits, that presentation on the smaller side for the most part. I mean, I'm not going to be throwing anything over, normally 5 inches long on it. I mean, exactly. something like this is going to be the longest I would go most of the time.
I would even use a little bit bigger hook with that size, and even kind of Texas rig it so that it's the Texas rig hook sticking out, and it's kind of, you're fishing a Texas rig, but it's actually in the drop shot.
Right. I mean, something set up more like that. Yep. Yeah. And like we said earlier, it all goes down to the conditions, where you're fishing, what you're fishing for. Yep. I mean, and I like to use something like this, especially, it's got the big body, and then it's, thin down through here, and then it's got a little bit of a thicker tail to it. Yeah.
All right. The last thing I want to mention is hook sets. When you're fishing these real light wire hooks, you don't need much of a hook set. You just want to kind of lift your rod tip up and just start reeling.
Right.
Let the real sharp, thin hook do the work.
Right.
You don't have to jam them like you do fishing Texas rigs and those bigger hooks.
Right. Exactly. And we'll cover this at some point, but like those little Z-Man shrooms, like when we talk about like Ned rigs and stuff like that. Yeah, those very fine hooks, and you don't have to set that hook. But yeah.
Yeah, even with those little shrooms, we've bent those hooks out.
We've bent the crap out of them from setting hooks, but
yeah.
So every application, hook size and diameter, your wire diameter, everything. Yeah, but for the drop shots, I mean, like I said, it's a finesse setup, so you really don't need to bury that hook. You just kind of lift up on the rod and crank down on it. Yep.
All right. Everything's we're gonna link a bunch of the stuff down below. Go check it out. Anything that we link in the comments, or not in the comments, the description of the video is stuff that we have used, that we recommend. We're not going to recommend anything we're not using.
Right.
So check it out. Take a look, see what you like.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll wrap this one out, and we appreciate you guys watching. Like, subscribe, like always. Tell your friends and family about us, and stay tuned for the next one.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. Stay stout. Right.
Stay stout. There you go. We got a new tagline here. All right. This is Matt and Scott for Stout Sportsmen. We are out.
Stay stout.
Stay stout.